Hello, and welcome back to English in Fluency. My name is Alex, and it's a genuine pleasure to have you here with me today. Thank you for choosing to spend a piece of your day in this space, where we explore not just the mechanics of the English language, but the deeper currents of thought and feeling it allows us to express and to understand within ourselves. Today, I want to invite you on a slightly different kind of journey. This won't be a typical lesson with rules to memorize or exercises to complete. Instead, think of this as a quiet room we can sit in together, a shared space for reflection. Let's take a gentle step away from the constant pressure to achieve, to improve, to move forward, and simply think. Let's ponder one of the most fundamental human questions. What truly makes a life feel meaningful? Is meaning something we discover, like a forgotten city hidden in a jungle, waiting for the persistent explorer to stumble upon it? Or is it something we construct, piece by piece, with intention and care, much like we build a language? Think about that for a moment. The parallel between crafting a life and learning a language. We start with the basic building blocks. Simple words, simple moments. As we grow, we learn to connect them into phrases, into sentences, into stories that can convey complex emotions and ideas. Isn't that what we do with our lives? We take the ordinary moments, a quiet morning with a cup of coffee, a shared laugh with a friend that brings tears to your eyes, the profound comfort of a familiar song from your childhood, and we weave them into a tapestry of personal significance. These are the moments that don't demand our attention with loud noises or bright lights. They whisper to us, and in their quiet presence, they somehow make us feel profoundly, deeply alive. But what is the source of this feeling? Do these moments arrive pre-packaged with a sense of the sacred? Or is it our attention, our consciousness, that infuses them with meaning? Is there some grand purpose out there, a cosmic code waiting for us to decipher its secrets? Or do we, ourselves, code our own meaning, just as we arrange words with deliberate rhythm, with heartfelt intention, and with loving care, to form a beautiful sentence? It's truly a fascinating thing to consider how the process of mastering a language, particularly a language as rich and wonderfully complex as English, can serve as a mirror for this very human search. As we grapple with grammar, as we learn to appreciate the poetry of idioms, aren't we also engaging in the fundamental art of creating order from chaos, of making sense of the world? Every new word we add to our vocabulary is not just a tool for communication. It is a new lens through which we can view the world, and perhaps more importantly, our own inner landscapes. It's a new instrument in the orchestra of our understanding. So, in our time together today, my goal isn't to hand you a set of pre-made answers. I don't have them. Instead, I want to gently open a door for you, an invitation to a conversation, a journey that moves both inward into the heart of your own experience and outward into the shared human story. You don't need to find a definitive conclusion by the end of our time. You don't even need to agree with anything I say. The only things you need to bring are your curiosity, your willingness to be open, and perhaps a memory or two of those small, seemingly insignificant moments that have quietly shaped the person you are today. Let us begin this exploration not with the certainty of facts, but with the boundless possibility of wonder. Ever since the first humans gathered around a fire, looking up at the vast, star-dusted canopy of the night sky, a single persistent question has echoed through the corridors of time. Why are we here? What is the point of all this? From the hushed meditations of ancient philosophers in stone temples to the lively debates in modern university classrooms and the quiet confessions in a therapist's office, we have all, in our own way, grappled with this profound human need. It is a need not merely to exist, but to understand the reason for our existence. This quest for meaning is not a modern invention, nor is it confined to any single culture or corner of the globe. It is a universal thread woven into the very fabric of the human experience. It is a silent, underlying code that runs beneath the surface of our lives. Whether you find yourself on a packed morning train in Tokyo, surrounded by a sea of faces, or sitting on a solitary park bench in a quiet European town, this question is there. It hums in the background of your consciousness. Sometimes, in moments of great crisis or loss, it roars with an undeniable urgency. At other times, in moments of stillness and peace, it whispers gently, inviting reflection. Let's travel back in time, over 2,000 years, to ancient Greece. There we find the philosopher Aristotle, who believed that the ultimate purpose of human existence, what he called our telos, was to achieve eudaimonia. This word is often translated as happiness or flourishing, but Aristotle's concept was far deeper than simple pleasure or fleeting joy. For him, eudaimonia was about living a life of virtue, of excellence. It meant aligning your daily actions, your choices, and your character with your highest potential. It was about realizing the best version of yourself. Fulfillment, in this view, wasn't something you felt passively. It was something you did, something you became through conscious, virtuous action. It was about being good in a profound, resonant way, not just feeling good. Now, let's leap forward through the centuries to the darkest moments of the 20th century and meet Viktor Frankl. A psychiatrist and a survivor of the Holocaust, Frankl developed a school of psychology known as logotherapy, which is centered on this very search for meaning. He argued that the primary driving force in human beings is not the pursuit of pleasure, as Freud had suggested, or the will to power, as Alfred Adler had proposed, but the will to meaning. Frankl's ideas were not born in a comfortable armchair, but were forged in the unimaginable suffering of Nazi concentration camps. There, he observed a heartbreaking but crucial phenomenon. Those prisoners who were more likely to survive were often those who held on to some sense of purpose, a reason to endure the horror. This purpose could be something grand, like a desire to finish a great work, or something deeply personal and simple, like the desperate hope of being reunited with a loved one. Frankl's profound conclusion, which has resonated with millions, was that those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how. What is so utterly remarkable is that despite the vast chasm of time, culture, and experience separating Aristotle and Frankl, the core of their insight is strikingly similar. We, as human beings, are wired to seek significance. We yearn for our lives to count for something more than just the biological processes of survival and reproduction. This is the very root of what we might call the existential quest, the confrontation not just with the what and how of our lives, but with the fundamental why. This deep need is not just a subject for philosophers and psychologists. It echoes through the heart of spiritual traditions all across the world. From the Buddhist teachings on the path to enlightenment to the Christian emphasis on love and service, from the ecstatic poetry of Sufi mystics to the deep-rooted wisdom of indigenous cultures, every tradition carries this same torch in its own way. Some speak of transcendence, of connecting with a reality larger and more enduring than the individual self. Others place the emphasis on community, on compassion, on creative expression, or on selfless service. But they all, in their unique languages, acknowledge a fundamental truth. We are not just biological machines. We are meaning-making creatures. We are storytellers. Modern science continues to map this essential dimension of our being. The field of positive psychology, for instance, has moved beyond simply treating mental illness to exploring what makes life worth living. It highlights that a fulfilled life is not merely measured by success or productivity, but by living in alignment with one's core values, engaging one's passions, and feeling a sense of contribution to something beyond oneself. In a world that so often screams at us to do more, to achieve more, to acquire more, this field gently reminds us to also be more, to reflect, to connect, and to live with intention. And so, here we are. You and I, connected in this moment through technology, are part of this ancient, ongoing human story. You are not the first person to lie awake at night and wonder what your life is truly about, and you most certainly will not be the last. But this realization should not make you feel small or insignificant. On the contrary, it should make you feel deeply connected. You are part of a shared pilgrimage, a global, timeless exploration of purpose. Think about it. Every time you find yourself wondering what really matters in the grand scheme of things, every time you pause your busy day to simply look up at the clouds, or reread a line in a book that stirs your soul, or listen to a piece of music that makes your heart ache with a beautiful sadness, you are speaking the same inner language as the countless generations who came before you. You are continuing a dialogue they began thousands of years ago. You are adding your own unique voice to the great evolving code of human meaning. And perhaps that is part of the answer right there. Perhaps meaning isn't a static object we are meant to find once and for all, like a key that unlocks a final door. Perhaps it is something we participate in, something we co-create. Perhaps it is less like a final destination and more like a conversation we are having with the universe. And perhaps, just perhaps, the very act of learning to code our own thoughts and feelings through language, through English or any other tongue, is a quiet, powerful act of reclaiming that shared human legacy. It is a way of writing ourselves, consciously and deliberately, into this grand, unfolding story. So, I invite you to take a moment. Let that idea settle within you. This is not about solving the ultimate mystery of existence in the next hour. It is simply about recognizing that you are not alone in asking the question. And the very act of asking, with honesty, with curiosity, and with an open heart, is itself a profound step into a more meaningful life. As we venture deeper into this shared exploration of meaning, we inevitably arrive at a subtle but powerful tension that exists within each of our lives. It is the contrast between the external markers of success that society promotes and the quiet, persistent pull of our own internal compass. This dynamic tension is a constant presence, whether we are consciously aware of it or not. It represents the gap that can sometimes exist between what the world tells us we should want and what our soul quietly whispers that we truly need. From a very young age, most of us are handed an invisible script, a kind of societal checklist for a good life. Get good grades in school, attend a prestigious university, secure a respectable, well-paying job, buy a home, earn enough money to be financially secure, perhaps gain some form of public recognition or status along the way. Now, there is nothing inherently wrong with any of these things. In fact, many of them can be wonderful components of a happy and fulfilling life. The problem arises when this checklist is presented not as a set of possibilities, but as the definition of success, the default path that everyone is expected to follow. But here is the crucial question we must ask ourselves. What happens if you follow that script to perfection, checking off every single box, and you still feel an emptiness inside? What if you reach the final destination on someone else's map, only to realize it was never the place you wanted to go? It's like navigating your life with a GPS that has been programmed by societal expectations. It will show you the fastest routes, the most efficient highways, and it will celebrate your speed and progress. But it never pauses to ask the most important question. Were these coordinates ever truly yours to begin with? You might be moving at an impressive speed, climbing the ladder of success, and collecting achievements and accolades. But are you heading in the right direction? Direction that resonates with the deepest part of who you are? Let's create a picture in our minds. Imagine a young man named Liam. Liam is intelligent, ambitious, and incredibly capable. To anyone looking from the outside, his life appears to be a highlight reel of success. He graduated from a top university with honors, landed a high-powered job at a prestigious firm in a major city, and was even recently featured in an industry publication as a rising star. His social media profiles paint a picture of a thriving, enviable life. His parents are immensely proud. His peers look at him with a mixture of admiration and envy. And yet, every evening, when the city lights begin to glitter outside his high-rise apartment window and Liam closes his laptop, a familiar, hollow ache settles in his chest. A quiet, nagging voice whispers, "Is this really it? Is this all there is?" He attends networking events on rooftop bars and goes to expensive gyms, but he moves through these activities as if behind a pane of glass. There is a persistent fog of disconnection he just can't seem to shake. His calendar is filled with meetings and social obligations, but he feels profoundly disconnected from himself, from the people around him, and from anything that feels truly authentic or real. He is meticulously following the map he was given, but it is not his own. And slowly, painfully, the realization begins to dawn on him. He has successfully climbed to the summit of a mountain he never actually chose to climb. This story of Liam is not an unusual one. In fact, it is a story that is becoming more and more common in our modern world. So many people achieve impressive milestones: the corner office, the six-figure salary, the public recognition, only to discover that a sense of deep fulfillment does not automatically come with the territory. The truth is, these external markers can easily become masks. They look like progress. They feel like achievement. But sometimes they are just motion without meaning, activity without purpose. The internal compass, on the other hand, operates very differently. It doesn't shout for your attention. It doesn't send you notifications or trend on social media. But it has a quiet, unwavering wisdom. It gently points you toward what is in true alignment with your deepest values, your real values, not the ones you may have passively absorbed from your family, your culture, or the media. It nudges you toward what feels deeply right and true for you, even if that path is slower, less glamorous, or much harder to explain to others at a dinner party. Your internal compass might lead you to leave a lucrative career to become a teacher or a craftsman, a decision that others may not understand. It might urge you to stay in a small, quiet town where you feel a sense of community, even when the world tells you that success is only found in big, bustling cities. It might push you to dedicate your time to creating art, to serving others, to building something that doesn't come with a guarantee of fame or fortune, but that fills your soul with a sense of purpose. While external success is often about what you can achieve, internal alignment is about who you can be. It's about creating a beautiful harmony between your inner self and your outer life. But choosing to follow this inner guidance system asks something significant of us. It asks for courage. It requires the courage to say no to paths that others celebrate, to opportunities that look good on paper but feel wrong in your heart. It means being willing to embrace uncertainty, to move at a slower, more deliberate pace, and to listen more closely to the subtle signals of your own intuition. It means asking the harder, more profound questions. Not just, what do I want to do with my life? But, what kind of person do I want to be? How do I want to feel each day? The beautiful irony is that the more we learn to live from this place of inner clarity and integrity, the more the external pieces of our lives tend to fall into a more authentic and satisfying order. Not always perfectly or easily, but more genuinely. Your choices begin to reflect your truth, and even if the road you choose is messy, or winding, or misunderstood by others, it begins to feel like your own. It begins to feel like home. So, I invite you now, in this moment, to gently check in with yourself. Whose map have you been following? What are the markers of success you've been chasing? And do they still resonate with the person you are today, or the person you aspire to become? If you find that they don't, that is perfectly okay. That is not a sign of failure. It is a sign of awakening. And awareness is always the first, most crucial step in reorienting your direction. It's the beginning of a journey away from someone else's definition of success and toward your own deeply personal definition of meaning. Because in the end, the true measure of a life is not how far you travel or how fast you move. It's whether the journey itself feels like a true expression of who you are. When we engage in conversations about finding meaning in life, our minds often gravitate towards the big, monumental concepts. We think about finding our ultimate purpose, leaving a lasting legacy, or navigating major, life-altering turning points. We imagine ourselves in careers that change the world, in relationships that last a lifetime, in moments of breakthrough that would make a compelling story. But the truth, in all its quiet and profound simplicity, is that meaning very often resides not in the grand and epic, but in the small, unassuming corners of our daily lives. It is tucked away in the gentle, recurring rhythms of the everyday. Sometimes, it is not the dramatic mountain peaks that shape our souls, but the small, steady streams of simple joys that keep our hearts full. Let's be honest with ourselves for a moment. The vast majority of our lives is not composed of dramatic, cinematic moments. It is made up of ordinary Tuesday mornings, of routine trips to the grocery store, of quiet commutes on the bus or train, of conversations that are left half-finished. We spend infinitely more of our time inhabiting the ordinary than we do the extraordinary. But this does not make these ordinary moments any less worthy of our attention. In fact, it might just make them more sacred. Because if we can learn to find a sense of meaning and beauty in the mundane, we don't have to wait for a special occasion to feel truly alive. Life itself becomes the special occasion. I remember an experience I had a few years ago, and the memory of it has stayed with me with a surprising clarity. I was sitting on a bench in a city park, waiting for a friend who was running quite late. Initially, I was feeling irritated and impatient. I pulled out my phone and started mindlessly scrolling, trying to distract myself from my frustration. But then, an elderly woman came and sat on the other end of the bench. She had a kind, gentle face. She smiled at me politely, and after a few moments of comfortable silence, she began to speak. It was nothing profound at first. She commented on the pleasant weather, the beauty of the flowers in the park, the children laughing as they chased pigeons. But somehow, the conversation began to deepen naturally. She told me she had been a kindergarten teacher for over 40 years. She spoke about the simple joy of seeing the world through a child's eyes, of watching a little one learn to write their name for the first time. The way her eyes lit up when she described the messy, vibrant finger paintings her students used to create was just captivating. She said, "You know, they teach you more than you could ever teach them. They remind you how to see the magic in things." We probably only spoke for 15 minutes before my friend finally arrived. I never saw that woman again. I don't even know her name. But that brief, unplanned encounter completely shifted the energy of my entire day. It didn't dramatically change the course of my life, but it colored my world with a sense of warmth and connection. It was a powerful reminder that genuine human connection doesn't require a plan or an agenda. It can simply be. That simple, unpretentious exchange felt more real, more nourishing to my soul than a dozen carefully orchestrated networking events or 1,000 digital likes. It reminded me that meaning often sneaks in through the back door, disguised as something small and ordinary. Or think about the last time you did something kind for someone without any thought of receiving something in return. Perhaps you held a door open for a parent struggling with a stroller and a handful of shopping bags. Or maybe you took a moment to give clear, patient directions to a tourist who was clearly lost and confused. Or perhaps you simply offered a genuine, warm smile to a cashier who looked tired and stressed. These are tiny, seemingly insignificant gestures, aren't they? But in those moments, we are communicating something profound. We are saying, "I see you. You matter." And to be seen, or to offer the gift of seeing another person, even for a fleeting moment, is to participate in something larger than our own individual existence. It is to strengthen the invisible threads of kindness that hold our world together. We live in a culture that constantly urges us to chase the extraordinary, to document the spectacular, to strive for the unforgettable. But meaning is patient. It doesn't need to be loud or flashy. It waits for us in the ordinary. It shows up in the way we greet the person who makes our morning coffee, in the tone of voice we use when we speak to children. In the compassionate way we talk to ourselves when we make a mistake, and no one else is watching. Meaning is not always found in the grand public speeches or the major, celebrated accomplishments. It is often found in the quiet moments that stop you in your tracks. A sunset so breathtakingly beautiful it makes you forget to breathe. A song on the radio that hits a little too close to home and brings a tear to your eye. A sudden, vivid memory of a loved one that makes you smile on an otherwise difficult day. There is a common English idiom that advises us, "Don't miss the forest for the trees," meaning we shouldn't get so caught up in small details that we miss the bigger picture. But sometimes, I think the reverse is also true. Sometimes, it is in paying close attention to a single tree, a single quiet moment, that we can feel the meaning of the entire forest. Meaning is there in the sound of a good friend's laughter after a long, hard week. It's there in the simple pleasure of sharing a meal with people you love, where no one is looking at their phone. It's there in the heartwarming sight of a small child spontaneously sharing their favorite toy without being prompted. These moments don't shout for our attention, but they speak a language all their own. And if we learn to listen closely, they often say the same thing. This matters. This is real. So much of what gives our lives substance and depth isn't what we achieve, but how we attend. It's about the quality of our attention. You do not need to travel to the other side of the world on a grand quest to find your purpose. Sometimes, purpose is waiting for you in the way the morning light filters through your window. It's in the way someone says your name with genuine affection and kindness. It's in the feeling of relief when you finally allow yourself to take a deep, slow breath after a day of rushing around. When we slow down enough to truly notice these things, we begin to realize that meaning is not always something we have to create in the future. It is often something to be discovered, right here in the present. The texture of our daily lives is rich with these tiny golden threads. And when you begin to consciously gather them, to weave them together with your attention, they form something strong, something lasting, something quiet, but profoundly real. So here is a gentle thought for you to consider. What if your life is already deeply meaningful? Not because of some grand accomplishment you hope to achieve in the future, but because of what is already here, right now. What if the real question is not the overwhelming, "What is the meaning of life?" but the much gentler, more accessible question, "Where can I find meaning hiding in my life today?" Maybe it's already in your pocket, waiting patiently for you to notice. Maybe, just maybe, it's in the next cup of tea you drink, the next kind word you speak, or in the simple, miraculous act of being alive in this very moment. When we think about the components that make up a meaningful life, we often picture pieces like joy, love, connection, and purpose. But there is another piece of this intricate puzzle, one that is perhaps the most powerful and the most paradoxical of all. Challenge, adversity, struggle, hardship. These are not merely obstacles on our path that must be endured or overcome. They are often the very crucibles in which our deepest sense of meaning is forged. It might sound counterintuitive at first. After all, who would willingly invite suffering into their life? And yet, if we look closely at our own experiences and the stories of others, we often find that the most difficult periods we face are the ones that reveal depths within ourselves we never knew existed. Many of the world's great philosophical and spiritual traditions have wrestled with this complex relationship between suffering and meaning. Viktor Frankl, whose wisdom we touched upon earlier, famously argued that even in the midst of the most profound and senseless suffering, meaning can still be found. His own harrowing experiences in the concentration camps taught him that when everything is stripped away, our comfort, our safety, our possessions, our status, what remains is the indomitable capacity of the human spirit to choose its attitude and to find a purpose. Frankl was one of the first to describe what is now known as post-traumatic growth. This is the remarkable phenomenon where individuals who endure great trauma do not just return to their previous state of being. They often emerge from the experience with a renewed appreciation for life, a deeper sense of empathy, and a greater inner strength. It is critically important to be clear here. This does not mean that hardship is good, or that we should romanticize pain. Trauma and struggle can be utterly devastating. They can break our spirits and leave deep, lasting scars. But what can follow that breaking is an equally real and powerful process of transformation. Through our challenges, we often learn new ways of understanding ourselves and the world. We develop resilience, that quiet, inner muscle that allows us to bend under pressure without shattering. We gain a profound and authentic empathy for others who are suffering because we have walked a difficult path ourselves. Our pain can become a bridge of connection to the pain of others. When we are confronted with significant challenges, we are invited, and sometimes forced, to reframe the narrative of our lives. Instead of viewing our difficulties as random, cruel interruptions or as some form of punishment, what if we chose to see them as our most powerful teachers? What if every struggle, every heartbreak, every failure was a kind of invisible hand, guiding us toward a deeper insight, a more compassionate heart, a stronger sense of self? This shift in perspective doesn't magically erase the pain or make the difficulty disappear, but it allows us to grow around our wounds, much like a tree that is battered by strong winds doesn't break, but instead grows stronger. Its roots dig in deeper into the earth. Take a moment now to reflect on your own life. Can you bring to mind a time when you faced something truly difficult? A loss, a failure, a deep disappointment, a period of intense fear. And can you see now, looking back, how that very experience ended up shaping who you are today in a positive way? Perhaps it was a moment when you surprised yourself with your own strength and capacity to endure. Or perhaps a painful experience cracked your heart open, allowing you to connect with others on a much deeper, more vulnerable level. These moments rarely make it into our highlight reels or our success stories, but they are often the most meaningful and transformative chapters in the story of our lives. Maybe it was a job you were fired from that, after a period of grief and uncertainty, pushed you to discover a passion you never would have pursued otherwise. Or maybe it was a relationship that ended in heartbreak, but in its aftermath, you learned invaluable lessons about love, respect, and your own worth. Or perhaps it was a period of intense loneliness that ultimately deepened your appreciation for genuine connection and taught you how to be a better friend to yourself. When we take the time to reflect on these experiences, it becomes easier to see how struggle can act as a powerful catalyst for meaning. This process of finding meaning in adversity is rarely quick or easy. Sometimes it takes months or even years to make sense of what has happened to us. Healing is almost never a straight line. It is a journey with many twists, turns, and setbacks. But the act of reflection itself, the simple act of pausing to ask, "What have I learned from this? How have I changed?" is an incredibly powerful tool. It reminds us that our life stories are not fixed, unchangeable texts. They are living, breathing narratives that we have the power to shape and interpret with our own consciousness. So here is a question for you to hold gently in your mind, without any pressure to find an immediate answer. Looking back on the landscape of your life, which challenges have been your greatest teachers? Think not just about the events themselves, but about the ways they shifted your perspective, clarified your priorities, or opened your heart. How have those moments of struggle invited you into a deeper, more authentic understanding of yourself and your place in the world? Here at English in Fluency, we often speak about language as a tool, not just for communicating with others, but for making meaning for ourselves. When you find the words to describe your challenges, to tell your story of struggle and resilience, you are coding your experience. You are giving it shape and structure in a way that allows you to see it more clearly and share it more honestly. In this way, storytelling becomes a profound act of healing and of connection. It links your unique, personal journey with the universal human search for purpose and strength in the face of hardship. Meaning, then, is not found in a perfect, problem-free life. It is found in a real life, a life that fully embraces the whole spectrum of human experience, light and shadow, certainty and doubt, triumph and pain. When we give ourselves permission to hold these contradictions, to sit with our discomfort, and to listen deeply to the lessons our challenges have to offer, we open the door to our own transformation. So, if you are facing a difficulty right now, or if you are looking back at a painful memory, I invite you to remember this. Your challenges are not just obstacles on your road. They are part of the road itself. And sometimes, the most profound and lasting meaning is waiting for you on the other side of the struggle. As we continue this gentle journey into the heart of what makes life meaningful, we arrive at a place that might feel both incredibly simple and quietly radical in our modern world. It is the power of listening. Not just listening to others, but learning to truly listen to our own inner voice. In a world that is buzzing and vibrating with constant distractions, with endless notifications, demanding deadlines, and the relentless noise of other people's opinions, the act of tuning inward to ourselves can feel like a revolutionary act. And yet, it is often here, in the quiet sanctuary of introspection, that our personal sense of meaning begins to take shape and find its voice. This inner voice isn't always a loud, clear, or commanding presence. It doesn't speak in perfectly formed sentences. Sometimes, it is a fleeting whisper that is easily lost amidst the chaos of a busy day. At other times, it is a persistent, gentle murmur, a feeling in your gut that you can't quite explain. And sometimes, it is a stubborn inner dialogue, a debate that refuses to be ignored, that keeps you awake at night. This is the ongoing internal conversation we are all having with ourselves, all the time. It is a conversation that profoundly shapes how we perceive the world, the choices we make from moment to moment, and ultimately, the meaning we create in our lives. Engaging in the practice of self-inquiry, the art of turning our attention inward with the spirit of gentle curiosity and kindness, can help us learn to distinguish this authentic inner voice from the loud cacophony of external expectations and our own ingrained cognitive patterns. These patterns are the automatic, habitual ways our minds interpret our experiences. They are often shaped by our childhood conditioning, our past fears, or the limiting assumptions we have picked up along the way. These patterns can act like clouds, obscuring our inner compass and creating so much mental noise that we can no longer hear what our true self deeply values. This is precisely why practices like journaling, meditation, or simply taking quiet, solitary walks in nature can be so profoundly powerful. When we engage in journaling, writing freely, and without any self-censorship or judgment, we create a space for our inner voice to emerge in its raw, unfiltered form. The pages of a journal can become a mirror, reflecting back to us our own thoughts, feelings, and hidden desires, revealing patterns and connections we might not otherwise have noticed. Meditation offers a different but equally powerful form of listening. It is a practice of cultivating stillness, a state where the constant background chatter of the mind can begin to settle, like sediment in a glass of water, allowing for subtle insights and a deeper clarity to surface. And something as simple as a quiet walk, away from screens and demands, can slow our physical and mental pace enough for us to finally hear what has been stirring beneath the surface of our awareness. It's important to understand that these moments of reflection are not about finding immediate answers or fixing our problems. Rather, they are an invitation to become a compassionate witness to our own inner experience. They are an opportunity to simply notice the texture of our thoughts and the quality of our emotions without rushing to judge them, change them, or push them away. This gentle, non-judgmental awareness creates the necessary space for clarity to arise naturally, in its own time. Meaning often begins to blossom in our lives when we start to align our daily choices and actions with what this inner voice reveals to us about our core values and our authentic self. This is not about achieving some state of perfection or having everything in your life figured out. It is a gradual process of recalibration. It is about shifting small decisions, daily habits, and ingrained attitudes so that they better reflect who we really are, rather than who we think we should be. For example, if your inner dialogue consistently reveals a deep, unmet need for creativity or connection, you might begin to consciously carve out small pockets of time for painting, for writing, or for having deep, meaningful conversations, even in the midst of a busy schedule. If your inner voice is crying out for more peace and balance, you might start practicing the art of saying no, setting healthy boundaries, or deliberately slowing down your pace of life. These adjustments might seem insignificant on their own, but over time, they accumulate, they compound, and they gradually build a life that feels more coherent, more integrated, and more true. Learning to listen to your inner voice also means learning to trust yourself, even when the feedback you are getting from the external world is confusing, critical, or contradictory. It means accepting and honoring the truth that the path to a meaningful life is deeply, uniquely personal, and that it is often non-linear. What feels right and true for one person may feel completely wrong for another. And that is not only okay, it is essential. Your inner voice is your unique, personal guide through the complex and often confusing landscape of human existence. This practice of attunement, of paying close, careful attention to your internal signals, is very much like learning a new language. At first, the sounds and symbols might seem unclear or jumbled. The messages might be mixed. But with patience, with consistent practice, and with a compassionate attitude, the dialogue becomes more fluent, more coherent, and more meaningful. And here, at English in Fluency, we have a deep appreciation for the fact that language is so much more than grammar and vocabulary. It is a powerful tool for giving expression to the incredible nuances of your inner world, for translating the silent language of your soul into words that can be shared, understood, and acted upon. So, as you move forward from our time together today, I invite you to consciously create regular sacred spaces for this practice of inner listening. Whether it's through writing just a few lines in a journal each morning, sitting in silence for 5 minutes before you start your day, or simply paying attention to the sensation of your breath as you walk, these moments are precious invitations. They are opportunities to reconnect with your core, to hear what your authentic self is trying to tell you beneath all the noise of daily life. In the end, we may discover that meaning is less about finding some grand, external truth out there, and more about cultivating an ongoing, compassionate, and honest conversation with ourselves. It is in this sacred dialogue between your inner world and the life you live that a sense of purpose, clarity, and deep fulfillment is born. As we approach the heart of our exploration, we arrive at a deeply empowering idea: the act of crafting your own personal definition of meaning. Meaning is not a static, pre-packaged commodity that we find somewhere. It is not a fixed destination carved into a stone monument. It is a living, breathing, dynamic concept that shifts, deepens, and evolves as we journey through the many different seasons of our lives. To consciously craft your own definition of meaning is to engage in a lifelong dance with change, with growth, and with self-discovery. It is a profound act of conscious intention. It is a deliberate choice to reflect on who you are, where you have been, and where you hope to go. It is about actively shaping the trajectory of your life in a way that feels deeply authentic and true to you. This process is, by its very nature, intensely personal. What sparks a profound sense of purpose and aliveness for one person might seem completely uninteresting or irrelevant to another. And even within a single lifetime, our own understanding of what is meaningful can transform dramatically as we encounter what we might call defining moments. These are those pivotal experiences, both joyful and painful, that fundamentally shift our perspective, challenge our long-held beliefs, or open our eyes to entirely new possibilities. Consider the story of a man named Marcus. In his early 20s, Marcus was a passionate musician. His entire definition of a meaningful life was centered on his band. Success, for him, meant writing a hit song, getting a record deal, and touring the world. He poured all of his energy and passion into this pursuit, believing that achieving this dream would bring him ultimate fulfillment. And for a while, it did. But as he entered his 30s, the band broke up, and he found himself at a crossroads. He took a job in marketing to pay the bills, and to his surprise, he discovered he had a talent for it. A new definition of meaning began to emerge. Now, it was about climbing the corporate ladder, achieving professional success, and providing a comfortable life for his new family. He pursued this path with the same determination he had once applied to his music. However, in his late 40s, Marcus's father became seriously ill. Spending long hours at the hospital, Marcus began to reevaluate everything. The promotions and the quarterly reports suddenly seemed far less important. His defining moment came not in a boardroom, but in a quiet hospital room, sharing stories and holding his father's hand. After his father passed away, Marcus found that his definition of meaning had shifted once again. He didn't quit his job, but his focus changed. He started a mentorship program within his company, finding deep satisfaction in guiding and supporting younger colleagues. He dedicated his weekends to coaching his daughter's soccer team and volunteering at a local community center. By his 50s, Marcus's sense of meaning was no longer tied to a single achievement, but to a rich tapestry of connection, contribution, and presence. His life trajectory had changed course multiple times, not because he had failed at his previous goals, but because he had allowed himself to grow, to listen to the lessons of his life experiences, and to gain greater clarity on what truly gave his life depth and satisfaction. Each defining moment was not just an event to be survived, but a catalyst for growth and transformation. Marcus's story illustrates a vital truth. Meaning is not static. It expands and contracts with the passage of time. It shifts like the tides, responding to our new experiences, our fresh insights, and the different seasons of our lives. This inherent fluidity can sometimes feel unsettling, especially in a culture that often prizes certainty, long-term plans, and fixed goals. And yet, this fluidity also offers us a beautiful and profound freedom. It is the freedom to redefine ourselves, to change course when a path no longer feels right, and to continuously code and recode our own life narrative. Crafting your own definition of meaning requires a blend of both courage and curiosity. It means having the courage to ask yourself the difficult, honest questions. What do I truly, deeply value, beyond what I've been told I should value? Which of my life experiences, both good and bad, have most profoundly shaped the person I am today? When I am gone, what kind of impact or legacy do I want to leave behind in the hearts of others? It also means being willing to let go of old scripts, outdated dreams, and societal expectations that no longer serve your growth. It means embracing the uncertainty of the unknown with a spirit of openness and adventure. Importantly, this process of crafting is not a one-time task that you complete and then check off your list. It is an ongoing dialogue with yourself and with life. The world will constantly present you with new challenges, new opportunities, and new insights that will invite you to revisit and refine your understanding of what matters most. The definition of meaning that resonates with you today might look quite different 5 or 10 years from now. And that is not a sign of inconsistency or failure. It is a sign of a life being fully lived. It is a sign of growth. In this way, your personal journey toward meaning is deeply aligned with the core philosophy we explore here at English in Fluency. Both language and life are dynamic, evolving systems that we have the power to actively shape. Just as you learn new vocabulary and more nuanced grammatical structures to better articulate and express your thoughts and feelings, you can also learn to more clearly articulate and live out your own unique purpose with greater clarity and intention. So, as you reflect on your own path, I encourage you to see your sense of meaning as a deeply personal work of art, a project that you are continually crafting with every choice you make, every experience you have, and every moment of honest self-awareness. Give yourself the grace to evolve. Grant yourself the permission to change your mind, and have the confidence to embrace the defining moments, the joys, the sorrows, the triumphs, and the failures that will inevitably guide your way. Remember, your definition of a meaningful life is yours and yours alone. It is fluid, it is evolving, and it is deeply, authentically you. And that, in itself, is the greatest freedom of all. As we come to the close of our shared reflection today, I want to simply hold, for a moment, the gentle, complex, and profound beauty of meaning. The way it winds through the landscape of our lives like a quiet river, sometimes rushing with energy and clarity, sometimes pooling into still, reflective depths, but always, always present. We have journeyed together through the universal human search for purpose. We have touched on the delicate tension between external markers and our own internal values, and we have explored how the fabric of a meaningful life is woven from the threads of everyday moments, the strength gained from challenges, and the wisdom found in listening to our own inner voice. Perhaps the most comforting insight is that meaning is not some distant, abstract concept that we must strive to attain. It is woven directly into the texture of your daily existence. It is often found in the smallest, most unassuming acts of connection, in the quiet resilience that is born from struggle, and in the simple, profound courage it takes to listen deeply and honestly to yourself. What feels so remarkable about this journey is that while it is deeply and uniquely personal, it is also profoundly shared. Across all of time, all cultures and all circumstances, human beings have wrestled with these same fundamental questions. We have not always arrived at the same answers, but we have found comfort, wisdom, and a sense of connection in the very act of exploration itself. Your personal search for meaning is a vital part of this long, collective human story. It is a thread that connects you to every single person who has ever paused in their busy life to look up at the sky and ask, what truly matters? In that light, meaning becomes less about finding a final, definitive answer, and more about the ongoing practice of living with conscious intention. It's about recognizing that your life's trajectory is not set in stone. It can shift and evolve as you do. It's about understanding that your values and your sense of purpose are not static, but are meant to grow and deepen as you grow and deepen. You are the author of your own story. You get to code your own narrative. You get to choose which values you carry forward, which stories you tell yourself about who you are, and which moments you decide to elevate and treasure. And that, in itself, is an incredible form of freedom and empowerment. So, as you move forward from our conversation, I invite you to carry one small, intentional action with you into your week. It could be something wonderfully simple. It might be consciously pausing once a day to notice and savor a small moment that fills your heart with warmth. It could be reaching out to one person with a word of kindness or appreciation. Or it might be setting aside just 5 minutes each day to sit in silence and listen to your own inner dialogue, without any need for judgment or action. These seemingly small choices have a ripple effect. They help you to gently align your daily life with the quiet wisdom of your inner compass. the one that is always guiding you toward what is most meaningful for you. Before we part for now, I want to leave you with a few open questions. These are not for you to answer immediately, not a test to be graded, but simply seeds for you to plant in the quiet garden of your mind. Let them sit with you gently in the moments that come between the noise. If you could strip away all the external expectations, all the noise of what you should do and what you must be, what would matter most to you? What small, simple moments or core values would you choose to prioritize if you were designing your day from a place of pure authenticity? And how might your life begin to look and feel different if you allowed those things to lead the way, even in a small way? Meaning is not a puzzle to be solved, but a path to be walked. It is a journey that is sometimes uncertain, often surprising, and always, always deeply worth exploring. I am so grateful that you have shared this part of your journey here with me at English in Fluency. I look forward to continuing the conversation with you next time as we discover together the many ways in which language and life intertwine to create beauty and meaning. Until then, please take good care of yourself, stay curious, and always remember, the most important and meaningful conversation you will ever have is the one you are continuously having with yourself.